Good morning, everyone. We'll call this meeting of the June 12th, 2024 CVTA Finance Committee to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Scott, can we have a certification of a quorum, please?
Yes, sir. Chesterfield County, Chair Carroll.
Here.
Henrico County, Mr. Nelson.
Here.
New Kent County, Mr. Moyer.
Here.
Powhatan County, Mr. McClung. City of Richmond, Mayor Stoney.
Here.
And Commonwealth Transportation Board, Mr. Davis.
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum.
Thank you very much, appreciate that. I don't believe we have anybody that has requested to participate remotely, is that correct?
We have no one participating remotely. We do have some attendees.
Okay, that's great. Has everybody had the opportunity to view the agenda? If so, does anybody have any considerations or amendments to the meeting agenda today? All right, not seeing here anybody having any adjustments to the agenda. We will leave it as is and move forward. Do we have, has everyone had the opportunity to review the meeting minutes from the April 10th, 2024 meeting, which are up for consideration and approval today? If so, if everybody's okay with them, I would accept the motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion's made to approve the meeting minutes of April 10th, 2024, properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing or hearing any discussion on the motion. All those in favor of approval of the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes carried. This is a public open comment period, I believe. This is the time and the opportunity before the CVTA that if anyone has any questions or comments to come forward. Do we have anybody online that would like to make a statement? Do we have anybody in the audience who would like to address the CVTA this morning? Everybody's just thrilled to be here. It's okay, it's all good. All right, so we have no one who wants to participate in public comment, and that is fine. Moving on, the next item is the CVTA Finance Committee Chair's Report. This is gonna be a really short report. I have no report. Moving on. We're waking people up out there, that's good. We'll move forward to the CVTA Executive Director's Report. Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just handed out a communication to each of the Finance Committee members that we've received from Commonwealth of Virginia, Virginia Department of Transportation. This is an item that pertains to the revenue estimate process that the Commonwealth has undertaken since the CVTA began. I'm just going to, because I'm just giving this to you now, I'm going to read through the letter. I will say that I am pleased to share that Ms. Farmer is here with us this morning, the CFO for VDOT, and is able to address any questions that may remain after I review this communication. So if it's okay, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to read through it.
That'd be great.
Okay. Dear Mr. Parsons, VDOT is providing the background below on the revenue estimate process and this year's activities for your awareness and consideration. During the budget cycle, the Department of Taxation provides working revenue estimate to the Virginia Department of Transportation for the Commonwealth Transportation Fund and the regional entities that receive state revenue sources. This draft revenue estimate is used to develop budget assumptions to support the governor's budget bill assumptions for the upcoming session. When the governor submits the budget bill for consideration in December, the Department of Taxation provides a final revenue estimate that may vary from what has been provided previously. Details of the estimates provided in December are provided to the regional entities for planning purposes, and this becomes the official estimate used for the Commonwealth. And as an aside, as you all know, we do get towards the end of December our annual revenue estimates, and that's what's used to develop our projections for the 6-year plan that the CVTA approves. So for the 2024 session, the revenue estimate provided in December included the impact of the governor's proposed change to the sales tax and its impact to future collection of retail sales and use tax for both the Commonwealth Transportation Fund and the regional entities. This was not known at the time the revenue estimate was communicated to the regional entities. And in April, VDOT communicated via email that this was the case and provided the draft revenue estimate we received in November for each regional entity for awareness. After outreach to the Department of Taxation after the special session on May 13th, 2024, they provided updated revenue estimates for the same period that do not include the proposed tax policy, thus representing the completion of the budget work by the General Assembly and the results of Chapter 2 of the Special Session 1. With the attachment, VDOT is providing the most recent revenue estimate update provided by the Department of Taxation on May 20th. For awareness, the impact to the Commonwealth Transportation Fund is minimal when we reverted to the draft estimate for VDOT and Commonwealth assumptions. For the Commonwealth Transportation Fund, we will implement any changes in later updates as this year's cycle is close to being final. From the region's perspective, the differences are also smaller in impact if you refer to the assumptions provided in April. Going forward, VDOT will always confirm the posture of the revenue estimate provided and whether it represents or includes a potential tax policy change, or if updates provided are purely forecast driven. Sincerely, Laura Farmer, Chief Financial Officer. And then the final page in the letter shows the actual versus the forecast for each of the regional entities, including Hampton Roads, Central Virginia, I-81, and Northern Virginia, as well as other entities such as Waumata and other localities. So that being said, I wanted to ask if there were any initial thoughts or questions from the members. My understanding is that this is hoped to be a one-time thing, and that moving forward we'll have better awareness of possible inclusions and assumptions in the forecast, the estimates that we received in December.
So for the record,
to
what
build that
was
in.
the change that was part of the tax policy? Maybe we can get that question answered. So obviously, we're saying that the revenues have changed based on the projections, based on the change in tax policy, and I think it's important to know what the change was.
Yes, sir. The amounts is what you're asking.
Yeah. In
Yes.
other words, what was
The
reduced
elimination of
and
grocery tax?
what was reduced that ended up resulting in the projections going down?
Would be appropriate to ask Ms. Farmer.
I believe that's so. Mhm.
Ms. Farmer, do you mind coming to the table?
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, and I'm sorry I didn't have that printed for me, so I've caught it up here. When we provided the estimate in December, the retail sales and use tax had this digital piece that the governor had proposed as part of his presentation, and how that would affect both the CTF revenue as well as each regional entity. And so the difference between what December had and in November was ranged from 5.5 million in next fiscal year, which is a partial year implementation, and then around 11 to 14 million in each year thereafter, just growing, for a total of 6-year impact of $70 million for the region in terms of overstatement over the 6-year period, with that policy implication embedded in it.
Does that spur any questions from the members? All right, I guess not. All right, well, thank you. I think it's important to have it on, at least on the record for anybody who may view this later or may be watching remotely, what the explanation is. I mean, the letters, we appreciate the letter and the notification, but I think it's important for people to understand what the difference was. And the digital tax that you were talking about is relating to,
He had a more expansive proposal to assess taxes on digital services like Netflix and that kind of thing that was considered by the General Assembly.
Yep.
Was still in play at crossover as well as when they adjourned, but was removed during the special session. And so we're in this will they or won't they position, but at the same time, it wasn't conveyed to us that it was included, or we would have definitely included that as a change to you all and what the factor would have been between the estimate based on just pure economic forecasting compared to the implications of the tax policy.
So,
And so we will always follow up if they have not communicated that when they send it to us. We will always follow up to make sure that we understand what's in the numbers when we're providing them.
but that wouldn't have affected our revenue stream.
Well, would that be the sales tax on digital items like
Yes.
Netflix and things like that?
Yes,
So you were able to figure out what people in each of our districts, each of our jurisdictions spend on that, so you know what the tax is on that?
I would say the Department of Taxation and their economists do something to understand what the implications are to a retail sales tax change.
So our 0.7% sales tax,
Could have been affected if it passed.
that's the only thing I can see that would have been affected on that.
Yes, sir, that's
Okay,
correct.
very good, because the gas tax would.
That's right.
Okay.
No, we were not aware of any, there were no proposals to change the fuel tax rate or estimate.
Chad will ask this question, maybe, you can hear it or answer it, or maybe someone else can, but the transportation package that we passed earlier in the year, was it based on the assumptions of projections that we were given in December? Is that what we passed that on?
Yes, we will revise those
So
assumptions.
we need to go back and revise those
be able to-
assumptions to be able
Yes,
to
sir.
take a look at how we have to allocate funding for that transportation package,
Yes.
which was what, around $276 million, something to that effect? Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Sorry
hope
for the
that-
inconvenience.
Thank you.
What's that?
I apologize for the inconvenience on our part. We'll definitely do a better job in terms of following up with them.
Life goes on, right?
Yeah.
So we'll
Thank you
move
for
forward and adjust, so, you know,
Okay,
we'll make it work.
Okay.
We always do.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Board members, and no one has any questions further? All right, very good. Anything else, Jeff?
No, sir.
Okay, well, that's good. Moving on, CVTA activities report, financial activity and investment reports. Mr. Parsons.
Yes, thank you very much. Again, this is one of our, I apologize. Page numbering.
Page number 9,
Is a
isn't it?
little off, yes. We'll actually looking at page 9 in the facing page. The financial activities and investment reports, the first one, the green table, everybody sees that we're all used to, shows the tax collections and allocations.
Yours is the only color copy. It's just a great table.
Tax collections and allocations, year-to-date, lifetime to date. The January tax activity dated April 30th. So the sales and use tax and local fuels tax, same table we review every month. We are now looking at year-to-date of $51 million and some change to the regional fund, $21.9 million to GRTC, and then local distributions totaling $73 million to each of our 9 member jurisdictions, for a lifetime to date now of just under $349 million in local distributions, $104.8 million to GRTC, and $244.5 million to the regional fund. And that is cash in the bank. As you know, with our 6-year projections, we work out 6 years so we can make those allocations. There's projected promises to additional projects over the lifetime of that 6-year plan. And this is the foundation. So going back to Ms. Farmer's update, we will be revising our projections and we'll come back to you next month or earlier via electronic communication on any impacts that might have on the allocations that have been made so far. I think the next item to note is the March monthly investment report. Again, this is presented in accordance with the investment policy of the Treasurer of Chesterfield County, our fiscal officer. We have a total book value of investments at just under $245 million. Our average days to maturity is 30 days. And at the bottom of page 9, you'll see for FY24, 9.1 million in interest earnings just for this fiscal year. So we are thrilled, as always, to see these funds continue to go. Our portfolio continues to outperform all of the yield benchmarks and 2 out of the 3 of the year-over-year benchmarks for the month of March. So the high inflation rates that we're seeing continue to keep short-term yields high. And I say this every month, but we continue to work closely with the county to make sure that funds are reinvested as often as possible to continue to see those interest earnings and the bank account grow. Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to take any questions on that.
Board members, any questions? The only thing I will say is that I think that number on the first page we talked about of the regional funds that have gone back to the localities, 349 million, is that the number?
Yes, sir.
That's an unbelievable amount of money that's been collected in tax revenue from the people in that not just live within Central Virginia, but also visit Central Virginia. But it's really, I believe, made a tremendous impact on the locality's abilities to improve transportation, not just from the regional dollars, but also when you look at for the local dollars in what it is allocated to GRTC for mobility in the area. So I know no one likes taxes, but I will say that I'm very proud of what the CVTA has done over the years to make sure that these monies that do come in that we're entrusted with are being invested wisely in transportation projects. And we've seen some of those projects starting to come out of the ground. So I hope someday someone watches this video meeting so they can understand the impact
There's
of that.
there's a few views on YouTube.
Mr. Chairman, the one thing I noticed with this, the total is 700 million,
Yes,
which means relatively sometime in the near future, it's gonna hit $1 billion.
yep,
And I know I don't like taxes either, but I think it is a major milestone that we're giving back $500 million to communities to help their transportation at the same time, making all of the region better in the way of transportation.
Yep.
So I don't know what.
and I know a lot of people are excited about the first project that we funded, which would be the Fall Line Trail, which hopefully over the next couple of years,
Yep.
segments of that will be completed and the public will be able to utilize it. But I've run into people in the community actually who've said, man, I can't wait for this Fall Line Trail to open up.
Good.
So, I
Well,
think
Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Moyer's point, when we do cross that $1 billion threshold, Mr. Parsons, maybe it might be not a bad idea for us to do a little communication campaign around that and what folks have gotten for that $1 billion as well.
What are those projects?
Yep.
You know, our last board meeting in New Kent, I gave the CVTA speech. And it's easy to do for New Kent because we've gotten $118 million of that 300 and some that has gone to the region. We've gotten it with 64. And I would think a lot of people would be encouraged in what we're doing by just some blurbs about what projects happen, as you did with the video, which was, that was tremendous. It's a shame. A lot of people didn't get to see that, you know, but to continue on that vein, you know, at the $1 billion mark.
it's a great idea.
Yep.
We'll have to make sure we work on it. But we actually, did you talk about the website? No,
Not today.
okay. Well, you missed that in your update, but why don't you just let them know real quick that we're getting ready to initiate that?
Yes, thanks to the action of the authority last month, we were given the green light to move forward with a task order to develop a standalone CVTA website. That proposal has been ironed out, and I'm getting ready to give the go-ahead to our on-call bench to make that happen. So I would expect something tangible in the next few months that we can start sharing out with our members. And I know that I've talked to the mayor's staff about providing a new video to share with CVTA members and friends about the accomplishments that we've done. We hope to do that on a regular basis and provide regular updates on what's going on. So that might work well with your recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Timing's everything.
Listen to him.
Moving forward, TAC activities report. Mr. Honor Clark.
Good morning, everyone. My allergies get the best of me sometimes.
Happens to all of us.
Diana Moore Clark here, City of Richmond, CVTA TAC Chair. To keep in line with the conversation, I will talk about the Fall Line Working Group meeting held on June the 5th.
Oh, man.
Talk about allergies.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's okay.
That went down the wrong pipe. That wasn't you.
You ready? You're gonna get some tissues, Janice, thank you.
What a mess. Get that on video, right?
Oh, they're gonna watch now, I'll tell you that.
The camera's on me, actually.
So they're gonna watch now.
I'd like to play that back on YouTube.
No, the camera's on me, so you're good.
Well, at least we get everybody a good laugh this
Yeah.
morning. I think that's important. Sometimes people
If
think,
I'm watching, I'm intrigued by what's going on across the.
well, you know. It was nothing you said. That's a first. Keep the coffee away from me. Let's try that again. I won't drink
Awesome.
any coffee this time.
Good morning again. I will give a brief update on the Fall Line Working Group meeting. During that meeting, we were discussing the trail rules, and we were able to get a short list of rules approved to include in our wayfinding plan. It's very important with the coming on of different segments that we at least have the generalized rules that can be posted. We're also finalizing the destination list. That should be finalized, I think, by the 14th of this month. Again, working with each of the localities and looking at what the trailheads would look like and talking through the mile markers and so forth. The long-term management was turned over to the TAC, as well as talking about, there was one other thing I thought we took on.
Yep, I need one of those too.
So the last thing that we were taking on was talking about the $7.5 million that was put into the budget of the state money. And I don't know if Chet talked about that, but those dollars were help lobbied by sports backers with the support of Chesterfield and Henrico's delegation. Again, $7.5 million was allocated to the Fall Line Trail. And so the TAC, that is moved up to the TAC from the Fall Line Working Group. And based on the leadership of the executive director, he wants us to be able to program those funds from our end versus VDOT coming in or telling us what to do. We did shortly talk with VDOT. They say they don't see any immediate needs for the dollars. So it is something that we can look at. And the team talked about those dollars potentially going to additional leveraging dollars for segments of the trail. For wayfinding, there was about 5 localities that supported some of the dollars going for wayfinding. And then, and Chet did say that could potentially fund a lot of the wayfinding with a small portion of those dollars. And then some grade separation and other projects like that around Route 10 there in Chesterfield as they embark upon their design build. So that, again, we have another $7.5 million that we can work towards implementing the Fall Line Trail. The CVTA TAC, we met on Monday of this week, June the 10th. We are continuing our conversation about the regional framework parking lot list. We think we've come up with a good tool for decision makers, for you all to decide and looking at the next round of regional project listing prioritization. And so we hope to close that up probably in August. We have a couple of items that we need a little bit more detail on how the authority is moving forward in regard to the deallocation and the bond issuance. We did talk through, so TAC is tasked with getting by the middle of July their top recommendations from the wildcard list or adding anything to that wildcard list. That wildcard list, again, was that $7 billion wish list. And we ask you all to think about that as you continue your conversations in regard to issuing bonds. We did talk about the SPA status update, ensuring that everybody is in line with ensuring that their SPAs are completed and or projects are started and are preparing for potential deallocation if leveraging is not successful. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Members, any questions?
Thank you.
Why don't you not go away just yet?
Okay.
Well, there may be some questions on the next one, which you may be able to help answer.
Okay.
Which is on the deallocation policy, that's
Yes, sir.
next on the agenda. Mr. Parsons.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is on noted page 7 of the agenda packet. This is something that Mr. Gregory and I have been working on, and there have been a few months of discussions about this. Our current adopted regional project selection and allocation framework has a section about leveraged funds and the possible deallocation of regional funding if those leveraged funds are not able to play out into full funding for a project after a certain number of after 2 tries, I believe. And that is primarily oriented towards the smart scale process. So that if a locality gets, say, $3 million of CVTA funds leveraged for a larger project application for smart scale funds, if that smart scale application does not see fruit in 2 cycles, then there is a potential for deallocation of those funds so that they come back to the CVTA and can be put into another project that may have more support, may, for whatever reason, may be more successful. At the time of the writing of the allocation framework, there was only the mention of the allocation, and what that process might look like was not spelled out in more detail. So Mr. Gregory and I took a shot and did some research from other areas of the country about what that possible language might look like that the CVTA could adopt and approve. So what is on page 7 is a working draft of that language, and it is for review at this point. We did have it listed as a requested action for amendment of the financial policies and procedures, but my understanding is that is probably the best place to put this, to amend the working financial policies of the CVTA. It's here today for discussion and consideration. It's very basic language, and I think that it basically just spells out the process, outlining what I just shared with you about the leveraged funding, and states unequivocally that the Central Virginia Transportation Authority has the authority to unilaterally deallocate project funding following 2 unsuccessful attempts, so it matches the description in the framework. It's really just to have that policy in place in the event that the CVTA gets to a point where funding needs to be considered for deallocation. Mr. Gregory, I'd give you any time if you had anything else to add.
No, sir. Happy to answer questions in your support, in support of your comments, and I think you handled it well and explained it properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I don't have anything else unless there are more detailed questions.
Ms. Clark, did you have what was the tax work on this?
So we briefly discussed the deallocation process, and first we discussed changing it from deobligation to deallocation to help with the alignment with the language used at VDOT and so forth. So we did talk about that, but it really took just the really vague, I say vague, description that we have already in the approved framework and brings it over to the to the financial policies and procedures. As chair, I do think that this policy potentially needs some additional clarification. So just like Chet talked about, it says smart scale cycle. And I think that this policy should clarify with specific dates, such as the end of a state fiscal year or a federal fiscal year, because many projects are leveraging other sources than smart scale. So that's one note that I would suggest added. And then while it does reiterate that the authority can unilaterally deallocate, I did make a note that the authority and TAC will indeed have some extraordinary circumstances, and that a locality could potentially request for additional time. And then how do we do this? How and if we do this, how does the authority still maintain that discretion with this language? So maybe working on keeping that flexibility through some language there, because I think we could have issues there. And then again, just putting in some of the more of the procedural things, and while thinking through I guess real life projects and things that we have on the list and how it may impact that. I just use that example for ourselves. We have a leverage for a fall line trail segment that has a substantial amount of CVTA money for leveraging. But we currently have that grant out. So Smart Scale is gonna, it's going through Smart Scale right now, but we have another grant out with the federal government that Plan RVA is helping us with that also depends on that 27 million match. So again, I think having a good, very finite understanding of how we're gonna handle that should be incorporated before adding it, amending the finance policies and procedures.
Board members, any questions?
I'm just gonna make a statement, Mr. Chairman.
Mayor.
I don't disagree with the concept, but I think we all probably need a little bit more clarification on the procedure, right? The procedure on how this would go down, and I think what Ms. Moore Clark stated, with some cycle dates could bring some more clarification, because you're right. We could have any locality, any jurisdiction could be in the process of leveraging the current CVTA dollars for other grants and things of that nature, and we may not know that. And so how does the CVTA know the full extent of the attempts to bring dollars from outside of the authority? So whether it's leveraging for state dollars or more federal dollars, how do we ensure that this doesn't injure any jurisdiction in the attempt to bring those dollars to fore?
All right, Ms. Moyer.
One thing to, I don't want to say put any teeth into it, but if we could make this, anything that's out there now is grandfathered, that this would not be, but when next time you put a project in, you know that this situation may occur. If we have projects now that are going in their second, time through, maybe that project wouldn't have been put in as to be funded if they would have known that it would have only lasted so long, 2 terms. Maybe they can make sure that they know it's gonna take place either the first or second round of Smart Scale or whatever the grant would be. So anything that's there now would not be under this, would be under our policy that we have now, but the next, from now on, it would be, the policy that we put to the, add to the amendment.
I think that from the onset, one of the concepts that was part of what the CVT had looked at when we did the regional transportation packages was the fact that any item that was submitted would be in there for at least 2 years, 2 rounds is what we looked at. So from the beginning, we've actually had that policy in place. And everybody, and you coming in this, and that, at this point, may not have been aware of that, which is perfectly logical and understandable. But the truth of the matter is, we do need to have a little, I think it's more defined, criterion, as Ms. Clark had talked about. And also, I would like to see a notification, as part of the policy, a formal notification to the locality to say that, you know, because effective this date, we've had this, we've been able to determine that, you know, your funding for whether it be smart scale or federal dollars, has been, unsuccessful. And, you know, let the locality know that, they can respond in writing with a request to either, and justification to keep the project in, or a response to say, we realize that, you know, we capitulate to have it removed. I think getting a position from the county or city, whichever jurisdiction it is, and giving them an opportunity to respond to that. Because we all know that it's probably gonna come from our transportation departments or from our county administrator, you know, sent forward to the CVTA. And then I think that makes it a little bit easier for the finance committee when it comes before us to make a determination, and a recommendation forward to the full body. Because we actually will have, you know, something in place to say that, look, this is part of the project, it's gone through 2 years, it has not scored. These are the scoring as reported, and we can understand why it hasn't scored. And then, you know, that jurisdiction or another jurisdiction, we may have a next one in line that's been part of our project list, and say so, and have a recommendation, quite frankly, from the finance committee to say, based on that, this next one that's in the queue, we want to move up in, that has not been part of it. Just a little more to add to it. I don't disagree with the concept at all, but I think we need to have it a little bit smoother. So I would ask that the TAC work with you, Mr. Parsons, to come up with some additional recommendations that we can then consider and then move forward. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Can I say one?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to do that and work with Ms. Clark on bringing that back to TAC. I just want to make clear that my intention is not to ever use this.
Oh,
We don't want projects the CVTA has identified to not score. But we were just trying to close the loop on the program and policy side to make sure that we have a procedure in place when that's necessary. So this is great feedback from you all today.
So
I think
this was your recommendation? This was your requested action recommendation?
this came from TAC the last time we
And
talked.
so what you're saying is go back, you just recommended to go back to TAC and do what now?
And actually come up with the additional recommendations that Ms. Clark just talked about on specific dates and times of when smart scale ends, when the federal dollars may end, for qualifying for those dollars. Some of the things that she just talked about, and then I would like to see a formal notification as part of that policy.
Due process.
What's that?
Just some elements of due
Yes,
process.
yes, just some elements of due process to make notification to the jurisdiction whose project it is that, you know, unfortunately, you went through this process twice and you've been unsuccessful. It's gonna come before the finance committee for consideration. You have an opportunity to respond in writing, and then we can make a, you know, recommendation from there. Because, I mean, quite frankly, the jurisdiction may look and go, yeah, well, this isn't doing well, I'm gonna pull the project. And then it makes it easier for us to say that project, a letter of recommendation for pulling that project has come from the jurisdiction, or they're requesting additional time, but at least we'll have a definitive answer one way or another from the jurisdiction, but what their action needs to be. That's my thoughts on adding to this as we move forward.
Yes, and Mr. Nelson, I misunderstood your question. The recommendation came from legal counsel and me. The TAC has looked at it and, as Ms. Clark said, provided some comments, but the list I have, I'll read through we need to talk about specific dates and timelines being included in here that may not be specific to smart scale. We need to consider requests for possible extensions or mitigating circumstances that might require additional time. The mayor asked for some more clarification on what the actual procedure might be for undertaking a deallocation process. And then finally, a framework for formal notification to localities that might give them an option for justifying reasons why a project may not be performing to level.
As an example, you may have a project from a jurisdiction that they put in twice and it didn't score well, didn't get additional dollars, and we'll say that the jurisdiction was trying to score at least 5 million from Smart Scale. And then they're in the end of their budget cycle, like we all are right now, and they're looking at end of year dollars that are surplus and go, okay, we're gonna allocate end of year dollars, because we know we're not gonna get this project through Smart Scale CVTA, through Smart Scale or other dollars, but we know we need it. So we'd like to take end of year dollars from our own budget, add it to that, and not lose the CVTA funding, but then be given an opportunity to find a way to fund it fully. And that's one of the options I think that a locality may come up with, or include saying, we're gonna actually restructure how we're utilizing our 50% dollars and use some of that to match towards the funds to get it, so they don't lose the project. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yep.
All right, so we'll let TAC work on that and come back with this, with those recommendations. Thank you, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you.
Sir. All right, moving right along. I have a clean version. Let's see here. The next item up is for a closed session on the bond finance validation. And so I move that the finance committee convene in closed session pursuant to Virginia Freedom of Information Act, section 2.2, 3711A7 for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to the actual probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiation or litigation posture of the public body. In section 2.2, 3711A, section 8, for consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel, during which all recordings of the meetings will cease. Is there a second?
So move.
So moved. A second is made to go into closed session. All in favor of going into closed session, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are in closed session.